Hi and welcome to the Geek Legion of Doom. This is a TV review and I'll be having a look at the pilot episode of the new 24 series. That's right, 2013 24 series. However, this one is actually an Indian remake rather than an actual continuation of the sort of Keith Sutherland starring sort of series. Now the 24 series was very, very popular in its time, and apparently there is going to be a kind of limited series that actually stars Keith Sutherland coming at some point, I would imagine probably in 2014. However, in 2013 we actually have an Indian remake starring Anil Kapoor. Now he was actually a character in one of the series of 24, but he was actually playing a kind of Jack Bauer equivalent. So it's not, you couldn't say it's kind of in the same universe or anything like that. So he's actually playing, I think he was playing like a president of some country or another in the genuine sort of series of 24. But in this series, he's kind of playing the title or the lead character, the equivalent of Jack Bauer. And it's pretty much, when I first heard about this sort of TV show, I thought it was going to be kind of one of these sort of knockoff sort of things that you've seen. You know, we've seen like the Turkish Star Wars and stuff like that, and there's kind of like these sort of dodgy sort of non-official versions. However, I was actually very surprised that this is actually a kind of an official remake. It's very, very similar in the kind of in the look of it. It's got the same music. It's got the sort of the same little clock and the same kind of sound effects and stuff like that. So if you're a 24 fan and you can understand Indian, you may get a kick out of this. So basically, this pilot, it more or less follows the sort of the same events that happened in the original 24 sort of pilot episode of season 1. There are a couple of minor changes, obviously, but more or less it is going to follow the same series. Even down to the fact, for example, you've got an Indian version of the Mandy assassin character and stuff like that. So it is pretty much going to follow the same sort of story. And I imagine they may tweak it somewhat as the sort of story goes on. Now, I have to say that the big thing with this one is obviously spoken in Indian. So unless you speak Indian, you're probably not going to be able to sort of follow it. Now, the version I saw didn't have subtitles, so there may be subtitled version somewhere, but, you know, it's obviously Indian spoken. Now, a couple of things. There are major changes. So Anil Kapoor doesn't play Jack Bauer. He plays, you know, I don't remember the character's name, but he's basically a kind of Indian equivalent, I suppose. But everyone who is in 24 has got their kind of Indian counterpart here. Now, even CTU is actually called ATU, Anti-Terrorist Unit. So there are, as I say, some slight changes. I guess if I had to have a criticism with this series, it has a cheaper feel to it. Now, apparently, this TV series is one of the most expensive TV series ever in India. But even so, I still have to say, when you compare it to the original American sort of series, if you're watching it, certainly from someone living in England or America or something, you kind of maybe do know it's just a sort of like maybe there's slightly lower sort of production sort of values and stuff like that. So I'm sure, you know, if you're a kind of a resident in India, obviously it's going to look a very, very lavish production. You know, us here, you know, sort of, I guess, more of the sort of Western audiences, it kind of looks a little bit, not massively so, but it does look a little bit on the cheaper side. It still looks a great series, don't get me wrong, but you kind of do notice it when you do compare it as a sort of companion piece to the original series. So when you sort of first sort of see the kind of, I guess, the prologue and stuff, you've kind of got news bits and things, you kind of see it looks cheaper, and the way they kind of separate the kind of scenes and stuff like that, it just looks slightly cheaper. You know, I don't watch, obviously, a lot of Indian TV being white in English, but nevertheless, you know, you kind of notice it when you do compare it to, obviously, the sort of original series of 24, and that's kind of 10 years old as well or so. So you do notice it, but it's obviously, because the original series of 24 was, you know, quite so long ago now, this is obviously an updated version. So it's kind of interesting to see it, you know, an up-to-date version of season 1, but at the same time it kind of still looking cheaper than the original 24 series. I mean, they've even got the sort of same sensibilities. I always thought with 24, when you had a sort of shot, the camera is kind of slightly sort of waves, I guess, to give it that sort of kinetic film. They've got that here. So I think they've obviously had a lot of interaction with the kind of the original makers of 24 to get it of actually a very sort of similar look to the kind of original 24 series. And I will say this, if I actually understood Indian, I would totally watch this series because it kind of looks, it certainly captures that 24. Now, Anil Kapoor, I have to say, he probably looks younger in this than he did in the original 24 series, which is kind of weird. So he, you know, when I first heard about it, and I thought, blimey, you know, he's kind of this sort of middle-aged guy who's, I can't really see him as an action star really, but he looks like he's kind of got a bit more in shape for this sort of series. So maybe I can, yeah, fair enough. I can understand. I know obviously Keith Sutherland is no spring chicken certainly. So I think, yeah, he certainly looks a little bit better shape at least in this series than he did in the kind of the original 24 series. As far as the acting is concerned, it's difficult to tell, obviously, because I don't understand the language. I pretty much had to just watch it and kind of, because I've seen, obviously, the original 24s, I kind of know what's going on. So it's difficult for me to tell. Like I said, I'm going to think there probably are probably cheaper actors here. So who knows? It's difficult to tell. I can't really comment on the acting simply because I couldn't really understand it. But like I say, the main criticism here, it generally is just a bit of a cheaper feel to it, really. But overall, you know, you're not going to see anything drastically new here if they are going to sort of follow pretty much the original 24 series. But if it's a curiosity, and certainly if you're you're an Indian speaking, then I think you may really enjoy it. Certainly if you're a fan of the original 24 series. I'm actually slightly disappointed that I can't speak Indian, otherwise I would totally be watching it. So I'm going to give this one a 7 out of 10. I kind of thoroughly enjoyed it, even though I couldn't really understand it. How do you feel it compares to the original 24 series if you've seen that? Leave me a comment and I look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.